Today we are doing my version of what has been called the poor man's lobster. In fact, I like it more than lobster. We are cooking my version of monkfish. I like to call it Monkfish Pomodoro because it has a wonderful tomato sauce, and then we're going to add a Lemon Sabayon on top of that. We are doing Monkfish Pomodoro with a Lemon Sabayon. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time tuning in, let us know you're out there by giving us a big thumbs up below, and then hit that subscribe button to make sure you never miss a video. Now, let's start cooking. Let's talk about our ingredients for our sauce first. So this is really a tomato sauce, which actually started out as a poor farmer's bread soup, but it uses, you can use fresh tomatoes or canned tomatoes. In this case, I've got some canned tomatoes and they've been crushed. You can use whole, you can use crushed, whatever you want. But then the base for that is going to be some onions, red onions, and some garlic, and we're gonna confit that. Confit just means cooking slowly in oil, along with a little bit of basil. Then we're going to add some tomato concentrate, tomato paste concentrate, and I'm talking the good stuff, the stuff you get out of the tubes. And then we'll add our tomatoes along with all the sauce, and then we're going to finish it with a little bit of red pepper flakes, and we're going to add the bread. And it's best to use, if you've got day-old bread, that works really well. In our case, I'm using some day-old gluten-free bread, and we'll use that just to give the sauce some body. So that is our sauce, and to start that sauce, we're going to, once we put our onions in, we're just going to cover them with olive oil. I know it sounds like a lot of olive oil, but we're going to be adding water to it and some other elements as well. So that is going to be our sauce for the dish. And of course, our main ingredient is our monkfish. And this is a fish that is a little bit misunderstood sometimes because it's a very unusual fish. It's got this one, bone headed down the center of it, but it's got these beautiful fillets on either side. So we're going to pan roast and then oven roast this fish. This fish is a hearty fish. It's not like a light white fish. Where you would, make a light sauce and drink it with a light wine. This is a hearty fish that it'll take a deep, red wine sauce if you want, or like we're doing today, we're doing a tomato sauce, a pomodoro sauce. So we're going to pan roast this, and then we're going to put it in the oven because it is a quite dense fish. So once we cook it on 3 sides, then we're going to add some thyme and garlic and some butter in the pan, just to add a little bit more flavor. So let's get started. So we're going to put our onions and garlic in, and we are just going to cover that with olive oil. And I know it looks like a lot of oil, but it will be certainly taken up as this cooks. So olive oil in, and our basil leaves. And now we're just going to turn the heat on this, and we're just going to bring it to a simmer and let that cook slowly. We're doing basically what's called confit, which means cooking slowly in oil, but we do not want to brown these onions and garlic. We just really want to cook them until they're nice and soft. We'll let that cook, and now we can work on our monkfish. All right, we've got our sauce on. Let's work on our monkfish. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and preheat my oven to 180 degrees centigrade or 350 Fahrenheit, because once we sear our monkfish, we will then finish it in the oven. So our ingredients for a monkfish again are, we've got our fish. I've got some string that we're going to use to tie that fish up. And then once we cook 3 sides of this fish, we will turn it on the last side, and we're going to add a little bit of butter with some thyme and garlic. But I'm going to put that to the side for now, and let's work on our monkfish. All right. A lot of times when you purchase monkfish, even if you have the fishmonger clean the fish, you will have this this thin film over the fish, and you want to go ahead and just remove that. So we're just going to use our fillet knife to come underneath that little film and remove it. And you can also just take your scissors and trim this little tail fin off. And that will help you to get the rest of that skin off. And just being really careful not to cut through too much of the actual meat portion. The same thing on the back side with that fin. While we're cutting our fish, we're going to go ahead and heat our skillet. And we're doing this today in a cast iron skillet. We want to get that nice and hot so that when we put the fish in, it starts cooking right away. So what we do is once we get this all cleaned up, we want to just go ahead and cut it into portions. We're leaving it on the bone. We're not filleting it just yet. So we are going to separate those pieces, and we will salt them generously. And I've patted this fish dry. You want to make sure your fish is dry because, as I've said before, moisture is the enemy of caramelization. So we want to make sure we get a nice caramelization on the fish, but it needs to be dry in order to do that. And I'm doing some freshly ground black pepper. And now once our skillet starts smoking, we're going to put our oil in and we'll start roasting. Once we have our fish cut, we need to now tie it up. And we want to tie it up so that it just doesn't fall apart while we're roasting it. So what I like to do is get a length of string about 5 times the length of the fish. And we're just going to make some, using butcher's twine. And we're just going to start in the very center. And we're just going to make a little bit of a slip knot here. Just like that. And trim that. And one on this end. And our last one, actually I need to get a little bit longer piece. And our last one, and again, we just want to, we're not doing this like a piece of pork. We're just wanting to make sure the fish keeps its shape while it cooks. We're not trying to tie it up really, really tightly. There we go. Those are tied. And with our skillet, the heat on high, we're just going to add our oil. And we want to get a nice coating of oil in here. And I'm using grapeseed oil. You could use avocado oil or any other kind of vegetable oil to do that with. Now we'll get ready to roast. While our fish oil is heating up, you can see that our onions have confit. They're nice and soft, and you know we don't really want to brown these. It's okay to get a little bit of color on them, but this is the texture that we want from the onions. So now we'll add our tomato paste in, and we want to get that nice and stirred in. And again, we're keeping our heat fairly low here. And with this tomato paste, it's kind of like when you're making a bechamel or making a roux, and you put flour, you add flour to something, you want to make sure that you cook some of the rawness out of that. And so that's what we're going to do. We want to cook and stir for about a minute to make sure that we cook some of the rawness out of that tomato concentrate. And then we will add our tomatoes. So we will just bring those to simmer and just let them continue to cook. And actually, let's go ahead and add our water now. We could, since we you know, a lot of times if you're using whole tomatoes, you want to let those cook and break down a little bit, but we're using tomatoes that have already been crushed. So we're just going to add about the same amount of water in as the volume of tomatoes that we had. Okay, so in with our water. And again, like I said, we're just going to bring this to simmer, and then we'll bring it to a slight boil, and then we'll turn it down and let it simmer. All right, in the meantime, our fish oil is getting nice and hot, and we are ready to add our fish. I'm seeing a little bit of smoke there, so we can go ahead and add our fish in. Having trussed this, we can now use this to help us put the fish in. There we go. And now once we get our fish in, we're going to let it stay in here for probably a good 5 minutes before we do anything to it. I'm going to go ahead and now reduce my heat just a little bit, probably to about a medium high. So as I said, you want to go ahead and leave this fish in, and you don't want to touch it for about the first 4 or 5 minutes, because what we're trying to do is establish a really nice crust on that bottom. So now we've had this in now for probably a good 4 minutes, and let's just give it a check. Okay, we're starting to get a little bit of color on it there, but you can see we could stand to leave it a little bit longer. And same thing with this one. Yeah, it's getting nice and brown. So we'll leave that in for just a little bit till we get a little bit more color on it. So while you weren't looking, we went ahead and turned the fish to the second side. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to put it down, and we're going to cook the top side of the fish. And now is when we want to add in our butter. And now I've got my heat on low. We've turned our heat down because we don't want to burn our butter. And we're going to also add in our garlic and our thyme. And again, we don't want to burn anything. So now we'll just use our garlic and thyme butter to start basting our fish. Ooh. And just continually baste it at the same time that we're browning that top side. And wow, the aroma from that thyme and the garlic and the butter is just incredible. And again, my heat is on quite low at this point. And let's just check the bottoms and see. Yeah, nice. All right. And very shortly that'll be ready to go in the oven. And now in the meantime, we've got our sauce back here. And our tomatoes are nicely broken down, and our sauce is doing really, really well. Okay, now one final baste of our monkfish. And we are ready to go into our preheated oven. And again, this is going to go in the oven for probably about, for these sizes of monkfish, probably about 7 or 8 minutes. And we'll finish roasting those off. In the meantime, our sauce now is ready to, we're ready to turn the sauce off. And what we'll do is go ahead and put in our bread pieces and our pepperoncini peppers, or chili peppers. Just dried chili flakes is fine. We just need a little bit. We're not trying to make this spicy, just a little bit of spice to it. So now we will leave those in. We let that bread soak up all that wonderful goodness, and then we'll continue on with it. While our fish is finishing up, we've got our sauce setting and it's waiting to be finished. We are going to make a Lemon Sabayon, and it's just a little option that makes a really nice topping for the fish. So for the Sabayon, I've got 3 egg yolks, and I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of water to that. And so we'll put our 3 egg yolks in. We're going to add about 3 tablespoons of water. 1, 2, 3 of water. And we are going to whisk this up. In the meantime, we're melting our butter. We've got 70 grams of butter, which is about 3.5 tablespoons of butter. So we're going to go ahead and melt this butter because we want it, and we're going to keep it warm. And in the meantime, we've got another pan with about 1 inch of water, and we're just bringing this to simmer. We don't ever want it to boil, a high boil. We just want to bring it to simmer. And what we're going to do is just whisk our eggs in the water until they're nice and combined. So we've got our water on, and we're just bringing this to a nice simmer. We don't want it to boil. And basically we picked this saucepan so that this bowl will fit into it. We're making what's called a bain-marie, and a bain-marie is just a water bath. And now I've got my butter in another small saucepan, and we're just melting that butter, and that's going to be mixed into this mixture at the end. So what we want to do is just combine our egg yolks and water, and again, it's just egg yolks. There's no whites in this. And we're just going to place this over our bowl. And what we're looking for is for this to thicken up. And once it does, we will then be able to drizzle in a little bit of lemon juice and season it with some salt. And as you can see, it's already thickening up. And you know, if you keep this heat on very low, and if your pan starts to get a little bit too hot, you can always move it off of the heat. So once that water comes to a simmer, you see that water, we never want it to boil. We just want it to just simmer on very low. Beautiful. And again, we're just looking for this to thicken up. And if we feel like it's cooking a little bit too fast, because we don't want scrambled eggs, we just take it off the heat for a few seconds and then just bring it back. Now at the same time I'm keeping my butter, we've just melted our butter, and that's what we want. And we just want to keep it a little warm. Once your mixture is nice and fluffy, just like that, then we can take this off the heat. Beautiful. And now we can just start drizzling in our butter. And we just want to drizzle this butter in a little bit at a time. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, now we can drizzle in a little bit of our lemon juice. And it doesn't take much. I'm using the juice of half a lemon, and we're probably not even going to use all of that. And season it with a little bit of salt. And of course, you know, you could do any flavoring that you want for this. And yes, if you're asking if it's the same as hollandaise sauce, it's very similar to hollandaise sauce. Hollandaise is really more of a butter sauce and has more butter in it. But it's fantastic. It's got wonderful flavor, and you can just add lemon juice if you feel like it's a little bit too heavy and you want to lighten it up. There we go. And it's got nice balance to it. Ah, wonderful. Okay, so we'll just keep that over the heat, and now it's time to take our fish out. So taking our fish out, we want to go ahead and baste it one more time, and just make sure that you remember that skillet is really, really hot. Wonderful. All right, and we are now just going to put our fish on this pan and just let it rest. Okay. And what we'll do is pour the rest of those wonderful juices over that fish while we finish our sauce. All right, to finish our sauce, as you can see, we've got everything in here, and now we're just going to blitz it. And it's helpful to have a submersible blender to do this. Okay. Once we are nice and well mixed or well blended, okay, now we're going to strain our sauce into another small pan using a fine mesh strainer, because we want a sauce that's really nice and smooth for this fish. And just using a spoon or a ladle to push that sauce through is very helpful. This sauce, by the way, is completely gluten-free if you use non-gluten bread, which we have done. So those who have wheat allergies or other gluten allergies can eat it just as much as anyone else. And now we can add a little bit of seasoning to this. We've already pre-seasoned a little bit with the pepper flakes and a little bit of salt, but we'll just add a finishing touch of salt and see how our sauce is. Fantastic. It's a nice hearty sauce. You know, like I said, this fish is a hearty fish. It's not a light white fish. So it can take a sauce that's got some nice body to it. All right, let's get it plated. Okay, our fish is ready. It's rested, And what we're going to do now is just we're going to remove the strings carefully. Just like that. And the fish stays nicely together. Beautiful. Okay. And we want to just remove the fillets from the bone, just like that. Beautiful. Look at that. Okay. We'll put those back on. And now, let's just do another quick little baste. Those cooking juices. All right, now we are ready to plate. Okay, so to plate this, we are just going to put down some of our Pomodoro sauce. And we'll finish it with a little bit of our Sabayon. Just like that. Okay. All right, let's give this a taste. It smells incredible. Oh my goodness. And wow. Look at that sauce. Beautiful color on that fish. It's like a piece of pork. It is just so much flavor. It just has so much flavor. And it's very meaty. It's a very meaty fish. Let's just see what the Lemon Sabayon is like with it. It's even better. That with the tomato sauce, a little bit of salad, fantastic. Well, I'll tell you what, if you've never had monkfish before, now is the time to try it. If you haven't done this before, give it a shot. Thank you for watching today. Really appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't made monkfish before, give it a try. It's not very difficult, and as you can tell, it's a delicious fish. So, if you like this video, hit that like button down below. Be sure and subscribe because it's free, and ring that bell because you'll get notified every time we release a new video. And feel free to share with all of your friends. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.